Abusia more covered over daily update TV. So now I will share and also subscribe. Honorable Dafeamakpor Akasembi said, South Dow MP said, say Supreme Court, Akasembi, it now depends on the speaker and the parliament now to decide. It is the Supreme Court or the ruling about saying I can't speak about being any the parliament house to sit down and decide. Abusia, I had daily update TV so we are very quick. It's inquity. Oh, so Electoral Commission actually say GFP Ghana Freedom Party candidate are disqualifying to or releasing more details to Electoral Commission about today and my bay about statistics. NDC for bisa ni nyina e wo sa video yen fa credit ma join news e ho ne nsaka asasem but basically Supreme Court ruling South MP honorable Dafeamakpor speaker the ruling about na say Supreme Court the ruling about but aka the Parliament House to now debate and answer to what to make a decision on this. God bless you.
Of the Supreme Court.
And he's NDC MP for Pru East. Thank you for your time so much here on Newz. I'll come to you shortly just to give us a sense of what should happen next after the Supreme Court ruling. But let me wrap up with Vincent. Vincent, what should be the next line of action? Because you are an NPP member of Parliament, you're in Parliament. What is the next line of action? What will happen next?
Well, you see, the ruling, let me say the judgment today, does not include a trigger for Parliament to reconvene. No, it does not. However, it is also within the laws of Parliament.
We seem to have lost connection to Vincent. He was just making and he advances the argument that though the court in its ruling excluded a directive to Parliament to reconvene, the next line of action for the NPP would be to call for another emergency sitting. I just wanted to get your thoughts about the Supreme Court's ruling today that declared that the Speaker's initial statement declaring the 4 seats vacant was unconstitutional.
Thank you very much. First of all, I am sad by the decision of the court. I think the court fell into an error of some law. What is the evidence for the court? Is the court saying that Cynthia Morrison is not running as an independent candidate in Aguna West, even though she's presently the NPP sponsored member of Parliament for Aguna West? Is the evidence before the court that the independent member for Kobina now is the sponsored candidate by the NPP under their symbol and colors for Kobina? Is the court saying that the evidence that Kodua Samoa, by Kodua Sante, who is the NPP sponsored member of Parliament for Sugu, is now an independent candidate? So unless I see the reason, I don't know what the court is saying. In any case, a decision has to be taken by Parliament to give effect to this ruling. And that decision will have to be taken by the 275 members of Parliament.
Let me understand where you are coming from. A decision by Parliament to adhere to a Supreme Court ruling? Is that what you're pushing for? Right. Why exactly? Isn't the Supreme Court ruling clear enough? Why then do you then have to decide on it as Parliament? Roxanne, I appear to have lost you. It was just making a point.
You haven't lost me. I'm here. I'm listening. I am saying when the Supreme Court decides, Parliament must take steps to give effect to it. Is that not the case? Is that not the case?
Is that the case?
That is the case. When Parliament gives effect, when Supreme Court gives a ruling, it must be given effect too. When Parliament is not an individual, that is it appears that everybody has a Parliament. It's not an Parliament. So a decision must be taken by Parliament.
I'm struggling to hear Roxanne Nelson Dafeamakpor, and I'm sure our audience are as well. I'd like to let my producers reconnect to Roxanne because he's making a salient point there that Parliament would have to decide and, conclude before the Supreme Court's ruling takes effect. Now, let me take you now to the EC headquarters. Jane Mensah, the EC chair, is updating us on some of the things they have done so far. Let's listen in. We'll reconnect the line and then have a conversation with Roxanne Nelson Dafeamakpor.
Therefore, it is not a challenge to do so, but it's important to place on record, as Citizen Atu said, is record keeping, that we are not required by law to provide summaries or breakdown of the register to the political parties. So I think that what we've done, we've gone over and above what we are required to do. And so I think that settles it. I think that Mordecai talked about the illegalities. I don't think it is our place to discuss what the illegalities are, whether it is with the GFP candidates nomination or with the PNC. We're all aware that the PNC is in court. It is not our place to discuss illegalities. Those illegalities will be referred to the security agencies to deal with. But we do not believe that it is our place to discuss illegalities. I think Citizen Atu wanted to know the law on which we are standing. If you look at Regulation 72B of CI 127, it requires that the nomination form of each candidate in an election for president shall be signed. I was just mentioning that Regulation 72B of CI 127 states as follows. The nomination form for each candidate in an election for president shall be signed by no less than 2 persons who are registered voters in the area of authority of each district assembly. And therefore, candidates must ensure that the supporters that they provide to fill their nomination forms for each district are indeed registered voters of that particular district. You cannot pick and choose as you please or find persons in one district and document them as your supporters in another district. That in itself is an illegality, because the law is very, very specific that for each district you must have 2 persons. And so if you are a presidential candidate, the onus is on you to ensure that the candidates or the supporters that you present are indeed of that district, and from that district that they support your candidature. And so this is what we used to disqualify him, because on the face of his form, it was detected that some candidates, some supporters had been brought from other districts to support him in districts where they were not registered voters.
So, I think my question was one of the it was based on you taking a decision to continue to let the status quo remain. And there are provisions in the law. And I wanted that to be out there so that at least the general public will understand, based on what are you carrying on with the status quo remaining as the printed ballots have already been done. Because I know that...
Okay, I understand. I think that it's important that our laws are not, do not really take into account, such occurrences. However, the law refers to a situation where a candidate withdraws after, nomination, after the printing of, after the printing of ballots and so on. The law provides an opportunity for the commission to continue with the ballot paper as it is. However, it is not clear on death and situations like this. And even if you look in the law, CI 127 and the Constitution, it doesn't expressly focus on a presidential candidate. If you read the provision 54, you go down, you realize that it's mainly talking about a parliamentary candidate. So, of course, we've had to stretch the law, but there's no clear provision that says that when a candidate dies and the candidate is on the ballot, you should use the ballot as it is. However, if you look at a meeting going, a planning meeting of all its regional directorates, so we would like to crave your kind indulgence to bring the meeting to an end. Thank you very much. Take over. Let's have a closing.
That the Speaker of Parliament, Akroma, declaration of 4 seats vacant was unconstitutional. We've been hearing from the likes of Vincent Echo, who is quite optimistic about what this would mean moving forward to proceedings in Parliament. Now, he has also served notice that it's most likely that the NPP caucus in Parliament, who is the majority really, they would be recalling the House on another emergency sitting. We've been hearing from Roxanne Chamber-Dafeamakpor on the NAC side. He's quite disappointed in the Supreme Court. Now, we're looking forward to the ruling because the Supreme Court have served notice that they would give us detailed reasons as to why they made this decision, and a ruling that will be made available tomorrow. We know that out of the panel that actually sat on this case, 2 of them raised objections with regards to jurisdiction, and the conversation about jurisdiction has come up again. The question, does the Supreme Court have jurisdiction to actually hear on this case? We've been hearing from Vincent advancing the argument that indeed, when it comes to interpretation of the Constitution, the Supreme Court actually has jurisdiction and is solely mandated to do so. So the conversation is raging. You can share your thoughts with us on all our social media handles. We're Joe Newz on TV. We'll be taking you back to my colleague Michael Ashali shortly, just to give you a hint of what the EC chair has been saying. Michael, just run us through some of the key pointers of today's update. Michael, if you can hear me now, I'm just asking what were the key things the EC chair said at the meeting today.
So today's meeting specifically was on the, the demise of Likee Tv Be, the leader of the GFP party. And then, so what the EC says is that they already have taken a decision. You know that as per the law, when